The Dr. Ray Podcast is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio. Here's today's monologue with Dr. Ray Guarendi.
National Middle Child Day. Well, we got national days for everything. Honors the in-between child in the family. And then it says, and I'm going to make a comment on this, of course, larger families celebrate more than one middle child, too. Now, we're going to get into that because I think that blows the whole theory of middle child syndrome out of the water. It says here, many believe that birth order plays a pivotal role in the personalities of children. For example, the middle child syndrome describes the firstborn as the leader and the role player. The youngest one, baby of the family. Therefore, the middle child is kind of this lost child, in between. Well, if you look at the research, it doesn't support this. Nice little theory. Doesn't really support it. Parents will say to me, "No, Dr. Ray, I'll tell you what, in my family, that is the way it is. My middle child is the one who struggles the most. My middle child seeks the most attention. My middle child seems to be the one that has the most self-image problems. My middle child seems to be the one who really doesn't know where he fits in the family structure." I think the explanation for that is more due to temperament. The way he is wired innately, the way his personality is. He would be that way if he were the oldest. But Dr. A, isn't that middle child syndrome? Well, think about it. He has a 1 in 3 chance of being like that by temperament in that middle position. 1 in 3 is plenty to keep a stereotype alive. Plenty. So the idea that, okay, we've got some of these middle kids who are like this. Yeah, they may be quite like that. Because of who they are, that's their personality, that's the way they approach life, that's their innate wiring, that's their interpretation of things, and they'd be that way if they were second oldest, fifth youngest, it doesn't matter. But I think middle child syndrome has gotten momentum as families have gotten smaller. For example, if you have 3 kids, which is, I don't know what the stats on that are. I think a 3-child family, Andrew, you can probably look that up. What's the percentage of families that have 3 kids? I got to believe it's just 3. Yeah, I think it's about 20%, be my guess. So because of that, you can say throughout the course of child rearing, that kid was in the middle when the baby was born. So let's maybe say he was 4 when the baby was born and his older sister was 6. So he had close to 10, 12, 15 years of being the middle child. So you could say, yeah, that locks him into that middle child persona. 2 children in a family is now much more the norm. So you don't have a middle child. That's what I tell parents. If you're worried about middle child syndrome, don't have an odd number of kids. You got 4, you can have an upper middle and a lower middle, but you really can't have a middle. Although I've heard some middle children theorists say, no, they're both kind of in the middle, then they share the middle child persona. 15%, all right, I wasn't too far off. This is my gut instinct is 15% of American families have 3 kids, just 3. So now, with 5, I got to figure, Andrew, what's that? 4%? 5% maybe? So, approximately, boy, am I good or what? He says it's approximately 5%. Boy, it's good having that wire service on the other side of the plexiglass. So, given all that, you really have a middle child for years if you don't have a big family. When we had 3 children, my daughter Hannah was the middle child. Andrew oldest, Sarah youngest. So Hanny was middle child. And you figure, let's see what happens to Hanny's personality being the middle child. Well, she didn't stay middle child very long, maybe a year and a half. We adopted Sam. So Hanny moved up to upper middle. Then we adopted the twins a couple years later. Now Hanny was definitely second oldest of 6, and the twins were in the middle, but they shared the middle position because there was 6 kids and they were 3 and 4 in that whole structure. But they were twins, so maybe they could share more middle than typical middle, twin middle. Well, then we got Pete. Pete was number 7. So let's see, that moved Sammy? I think that moved Sammy into that middle child position, number 4, right? 7, 6, 5, and then Sammy 4, middle, 3, 2, 1. Okay, then we went to 8 and 9. James and Mary were adopted roughly at the same time, so we went to 8 and 9. Now, Hannah is definitely the oldest next to Andrew, so she's long since abandoned middle child. No more. Well, did she have any residual middle child syndrome? Is there leftover kind of like chronic middle child syndrome? Can you have acute middle child syndrome? Back when she was middle child for about a year, did she absorb the middle child persona, or did she just kind of shoot through the whole position? You see how complex it gets? It really is a nice little, cutesy little theory, but in fact, it does not have much in the way of research support. The only place birth order seems to show anything is oldest and only. Group, a little more independent, a little more achieving, maybe. As a group now, these are not automatic findings. So we like to latch on to things that sound cutesy. But here's the other thing about personality. It's very complex. It's very diverse. So given all that, it's fun. But here's I think a little bit of the danger in it. It can predispose you to look for things that may not really be there, or if they are there, are not there in that intensity. Well, he's got self-image problems. What do you expect? He's a middle child, She acts up an awful lot, but that's what I heard about middle children, They do those kinds of things. And you're looking for the wrong explanation. Maybe she acts up because you're not disciplining her well enough because her temperament's a little more pushy. The oldest wasn't that pushy. She is. And you're thinking, well, okay, look at this. She's kind of a behavior problem for us. That's that middle child thing, isn't it? No, it's probably the dynamic between the way you handle her and her temperament. Temperament is so much more powerful than birth order. Any parent of more than one kid knows how very different their personalities can be. Very. And some of those most difficult kids fall in the middle. About a third of them if you have 3 kids, and 20% of them if you have 5 kids. Let me do the math for 7 kids. You got 7 kids, is 14, roughly 14%. Yeah, about 14% of them. 9 kids, 11% of them. And they keep moving. They keep shifting around. So I like this where they say big families can have a number of middle children. Yeah, over the course we had 4 or 5 middle kids. But they didn't stay there very long. They moved on or up. Fortunately, none of them moved down. But their personalities were shaped much more powerfully by how they were wired and by our parenting. So, like the middle child stuff, it's fun. But it really doesn't have much impact. But let's let them have their National Middle Child Day.
More of Dr. Ray's Manologues can be found on his website, drray.com. Manologues, as well as full-length programs of The Doctor Is In, can be heard at AveMariaRadio.net and EWTN.com/radio.